Even with Pete Alonso and Juan Soto signed, there are still trade rumors abounding with the New York Mets. We're going to talk about the three most common names that I keep seeing pop up in New York Mets trade rumors, and I want to know from you, who would you trade, who would you start, and who would you bench of these three players? I'm going to give you the three players, then I'm going to give you my overall take on it and what I think we should do as a team, and I want to hear from you as well. So we have Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte, and Brett Baty. These are the three names, and they all have different trade interests for different reasons. Okay, so you have Starling Marte, currently in a platoon role for the final outfield spot / a DH from time to time, different things like that. You have Jeff McNeil, who can play both second base and play some outfield. He was a batting champion in 2022, but has really struggled the last couple of seasons to get his groove back. And then you have Brett Baty, who his glove work at third base has been great, but his bat has struggled to be consistent at the major league level. He is, again, fielding-wise, been major league caliber, but kind of quadruple A caliber bat, where he goes and he absolutely dominates in triple A, but struggles to maintain the same consistency in hitting that you really want to see at the major league level. So, of these three guys, what would you do? Here's my take. First of all, if I have to trade one, I'm going to trade Starling Marte. I appreciate Marte and what he has done with this whole rebuild. In fact, when he first came over, I'll admit I was kind of a skeptic, and I didn't really think that he was going to be a player who was going to last long with the Mets. And so I do appreciate everything that he has done, but he is certainly kind of moving in that direction of nearing the end of his career and not really having that explosiveness that we need. I feel like there is kind of this duty that maybe Mets front office and Mets fans have to him because he has been loyal and he has stayed with the team and been through up years and down years, but I just don't necessarily see the long-term value. I think if the Mets could get a decent trade for him, that they should do so. Jeff McNeil is the next one. Now, there's rumors about him going to the Angels. Of course, most of these things would involve the Mets eating a good chunk of the salary. I would start Jeff McNeil. I would. And I would start him at least for the beginning of the season. I would give him the chance. And I would make sure, especially, that his outfield can be used in the sense of if Brandon Nimmo is struggling at all with his injury, with his heel, and that he would be able to take some extra reps there. I would love to see Jeff McNeil move a little bit away from this analytics-driven approach and just go much back more to where he was in 2022, just more of that slap hitter, aggressive sort of thing. And I would love to see him just get back to playing baseball and having fun playing baseball. I've seen so much frustration out of him over the last couple of years. It's not fun to watch, but I would certainly give him the opportunity. Certainly, if a trade were to come up, he might be more desirable because of his position flexibility and because of his recent success of being the batting champion in 2022. I would be entertaining offers on all three of these guys. But if I had to just pick one to start of these three, it would be McNeil. However, I do think that Acuna is coming. Mauricio will start the year in the minor leagues almost certainly, but I think that there's probably going to be a point in time in this season where Acuna will take over the full-time second base duty here. But in the meantime, use the position flexibility, the veteran leadership, and if you can somehow work him into a higher average hitter again, get him closer to where he was in 2022 than where he was the last couple of years, I think that would be good. Unfortunately, that means for benching, it would be Brett Baty. Now, again, there are opportunities here. I think it's very unlikely that all three of these guys will be with the Mets on the postseason roster. I just don't see many scenarios where that's going to happen. There's just so much young talent coming up, so much young infield talent, and even a little bit of outfield talent coming up with Jet Williams. And I know there's just all sorts of opportunities and parts and pieces in motion. But unfortunately, I would say that this would mean Brett Baty would be the odd man out, because if you're going to have Vientos starting at third and you're going to have some form of a platoon with Acuna and McNeil at second base, there's just not a place for Baty to go. Now, there's also definite trade interest there. I do believe Brett Baty would be a starting third baseman with a good chunk of teams in the majors. Not all of them. Certainly there are some who have very well established or young third basemen that they want to grow with, but there is definitely some trade value here. And again, as much as I like Brett Baty, I do kind of fear that maybe he will be packaged in some sort of deal. I just hope that if we deal him, that we get someone who will be a true contributor to the team. So of the three, I can see any one of the three getting traded. I think probably Marte is the least likely to get traded. I just think that he plays a position that's going to be fairly easy for other teams to replace, and I just think that that's kind of a toughest fit. I think for a lot of teams, McNeil would be the more in demand, but I think for younger teams, Brett Baty would be someone that they would be pursuing as someone who is a great fielder, and if they could have that patience to allow his bat to develop at the major league level without pushing him quickly, that's fine. But the problem is when he's competing with a Mark Vientos who's putting up 30 home runs, that's a really difficult spot to overcome. So let me know down in the comments below, who would you start, who would you bench, and who would you trade? This is MetropoliFins, YouTube's smallest New York Mets and Miami Dolphins challenge. One bonus thing to cover is that Drew Smith was re-signed by the New York Mets today. He will most likely be out for the entire season, recovering from surgery. However, this allows him to continue to get medical care from the team and opens up the door for him to come back in a future year. I like this move. There's no reason not to do this. Drew Smith has been with the Mets. He's one of the longest tenured Mets players. I believe he's the longest tenured Mets pitcher on the staff. And I think there's just something cool to be shown here by the loyalty the Mets are showing Drew Smith. They didn't have to do this, but they choose to do this, and they help him in his recovery efforts. And hopefully it will pay off down the road. There is maybe a chance, if the healing is really good, that you'd see him in September. But even if not, I think this is a really cool move by the New York Mets, investing in Drew Smith. So lots of different things going on. I don't expect there to be too much more other than the Mets maybe trying to make one push for a number one or number two starting pitcher at this point in time. The action at Port St. Lucie is going to be really revving up here over the next week, and we're going to be talking about spring training games before we know it.